And to be having a conversation with you. This is Thabo Makama. If you're joining us live, you're joining us live on T-Junction, and we're bringing a special recording session that we are sharing with you. We will make the recording available on Monday to the rest of the people, but then we've just also published on our YouTube Live. If one is available, you can join us, and I see someone has already joined us on the YouTube Live. But we've got a special conversation that we're having around agriculture. As you know, we had dedicated and said T-Junction March is going to be about agriculture. And we could not find any other except for a person that is fitting and experienced within the agriculture space. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and then we're going to go in. Yes, Dumi, Mr. Mtetra, thank you very much. This is one person as well, Dumi, that I see is live from a good person that is trying to do some agriculture projects in KZN. So he'll definitely listen to this conversation. So if you're joining us for the first time, this is T-Junction, and I'm Thabo Makama, and we have conversations with entrepreneurs, with experts in different fields, trying to create a space where we can share information and we can create a space of understanding. T-Junction always comes with information that you can utilize either from your personal perspective or professional perspective. And that is why we bring individuals that know a little bit more than us. That is the space that we want to be in, and we want to continue to support people that are trying to either hustle, get into business, or grow their wingspan in creating new opportunities. And today we're talking about agriculture. Mr. Madolo, welcome, and perhaps you can just give us a brief introduction of yourself, and who are you, what space you're working in, how long have you been working in the agriculture space?
Thank you very much, Mr. Makama. The name is Mncendisi Madolo, as mentioned. Well, I actually grew up in this sector called agriculture. I must actually say from birth, because my grandfather was very much into farming.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time we were going to the fields, and during those days, it was in the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to take our cattle, because we're using wagons at that time.
Yeah.
Move with our cattle to, we had a span of two kettles, and then they had to pull our carts to the fields. So I was sitting on this cart as the cattle were pulling, and it was on the main road. Basically, I think it's N6 between Queenstown and East London.
Mm-hmm.
So before we knew it, because nobody was actually taking care of these cattle in terms of pulling them to the field, they ran with me to the field on the main road.
Yeah. They taught you a bit of a lesson there.
Of course. And but they ended up on our field, which was an interesting thing,
Yeah.
And nobody got hurt. I was never hurt, and here am I. So I'm trying to say I was actually baptized and born into this thing. And
nice.
From there, I actually went on to study, of course, in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, I studied at an agricultural high school, Pandulwazi, in the former Sky then, from 1984 until 1988 or so. And then I went to the University of Fort Hare, where I studied my degree in agriculture, and I ended up with an honors in agricultural economics.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working. And interestingly, as Umkhosa, I never worked in the Eastern Cape,
Sure.
Where I was born and where I got.
Where you got baptized for agriculture. Your baptismal roots, you have not given back and worked there. Yes.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working in the Free State,
Yeah.
Deep issues were deep, very interesting, and
I'm sure racial
serious
issues.
agriculture actually happened. And that time it was very much racial, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the boardroom, we were actually speaking Afrikaans.
Yeah,
They were speaking Afrikaans, of course, I was speaking English. But
yeah.
that as it may be, that is where I professionally cut my teeth in as far as the sector. And very interesting. And the interesting thing about it as well is that even because, as you know, Free State is a Sotho-speaking province. So even the MEC then, namely Mr. Cass Heeman, who was the MEC for agriculture then, I had to go and interpret for him in Kwakwa, which is a Sotho-speaking area.
While you were closer.
Was of course. So that is where I also learned some of my Sotho, which is very interesting because, and this relates to the fact that agriculture is very much rooted in the rural areas. I was exposed to those, to my Sotho-speaking people, and that's where I learned my Sotho as well. Yeah. So I'm trying to say I'm plus minus close to 30 years in the industry.
Wow.
Having worked in government, having worked in parastatals like the Perishable Products Export Control Board in the Western Cape, where most of our fruits that are actually exported to Europe are actually certified by the Perishable Products Export Control.
Fantastic.
Your table grapes.
I hear we actually export one of the best, if not the best in the world in terms of the fruits. Some of them don't even actually reach our tables. Some of the grapes are as big as a small peach or something like that. I don't know if it's a myth, but it's a topic for another day. But we're quite big as South Africa in terms of the opportunity of being one of the large exporters of fresh produce into Europe, into different countries.
Of course, yes. And I think Western Cape is doing a lot on that. And having worked in that program, I can confirm that it's really true that most of our best fresh produce, your apples, your pears, your peaches, your table grapes, etc., are actually for export.
Wow.
Some of those that we get ourselves are not top quality as compared to the export ones.
So even if we go to Woolies and we think, we're buying top notch, that's a topic for another day. No, fantastic. Yeah. No, cool.
So, and then, as I said, parastatals and also, your development finance institution, international ones, like your DFID, it was called DFID, then the Department of Foreign
Direct
Investment, which was British. And I was working within the Kellogg Foundation funded program, managing Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and also ended up in the Western Cape with that. It was called, under Kellogg Foundation, the Initiative for Development and Equity in African Agriculture.
Sure. So there's been a lot of things happening around the agriculture space and trying to get farmers and individuals, funded and grown. And I want us to delve a little bit into that. I mean, given your background, it's well understood the fact that you have been in the space. You totally understand what we are looking at. You totally understand the landscape. You totally understand the funding and more of that. So our discussion is really for us to grasp our mind around this big opportunity or this big industry of agriculture. I mean, you've highlighted the fact that there is different things that are happening and how we the biggest exporter of these fresh produce. What is involved actually in total in the value chain of agriculture? Do you think a lot of people understand this particular thing in terms of, is agriculture only about just the plants, the produce that we take out to take overseas? Or is the value chain bigger than me and you or some of us know?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I think this is one thing that we need to expose, especially our youth about, because the value chain of agriculture, upstream and downstream, is very complex. And therefore, it also informs the opportunities that are actually there. I can just make an example, simple example of maize production. you need seeds. Before you can grow maize, you need seeds. And of course, what that means is then upstream the value chain of maize, you need to have people who are actually, or entrepreneurs who are in the business of producing seed, quality seed. As we speak, we've got big companies in this country that are involved in that space. You know, your Panas, your Pioneer Seeds, and so on. And even other international companies that are in this country that are in the business of just supplying seeds, big business.
Sure.
So, and then you ask yourself in terms of, I mean, we've had BEE, the Black Economic Empowerment, for so long. How many of our Black people are actually participating in this economy?
Sure.
Now, and there's billions of friends, the agriculture sector. Now, so upstream, you've got your as I say, the seeds. You've got the people that are actually supplying the chemicals that are required to kill the weeds and so on, fertilizers for soil nutrition and so on. So upstream, there are those opportunities, and therefore, and that's the biggest question. Why don't we have the youth specifically, who are chemists and so on, who can actually play, you know, within the space of supplying chemicals within the industry, in the space of supplying fertilizers, manufacturers, and owning, you know, some of these, business opportunities, and you go downstream the value chain as well, and therefore you've got to produce the maize and so on. There's the requisite equipment that you need to prepare the land, the tractors, you know, certain planters that you need to utilize to be able to plant, etc. So that's another opportunity that is there. I'm just talking, as I say, I'm just talking about
one crop. You're talking about one crop. We have not looked at a plethora of crops like grapes. You spoke about table grapes. You spoke about so many other things. So we haven't even touched to that level of understanding to say, if we're looking at cabbages, if we're looking at spinach, we're looking at it. But elaborate further there for me then in terms of, you know, if we were to look at maize, which is, I would say, a crop that is consumed by us as individuals on a daily basis, right? Do we fully, or have we fully immersed ourselves in the understanding of what it takes to actually participate in that? Because it's good to understand that there is a value chain. But what would it take for individuals to have a clear understanding? I mean, we're talking to entrepreneurs, we're talking to individuals that are in the space of wanting to find out more about agriculture. We're talking to people that have a passion to want to grow communities and stuff on T-Junction. If you're joining us for the first time, if you're listening to the recording on the first time, this is T-Junction. I'm Thabo Makama, your host, and we're talking to Mncendisi Madolo, who's the Chief Director of Agriculture in Gauteng. So have we fully immersed ourselves in understanding what it takes to get in there? Is it that difficult, or are there barriers to entry that one needs to take into account?
Well, Thabo, I think, again, very interesting question. I don't think so. I think the only thing that we are, and I think this has been mentioned in the highest offices in our country, presidency, even with our premier, that we are not good in actually telling good stories about agriculture, for example, and the opportunities that are there. So we need to communicate more on these things, and make sure that the requisite opportunities in the sector, downstream and upstream, all the value chain, we can call them, you know, your grains, as I mentioned, maize, your horticulture, your piggery, your poultry, etc., the livestock. Along all those value chains, there's a lot of opportunities, and we need, I think, especially in the space where I'm operating in government, we definitely need to make sure that there we communicate more and we expose our citizens and especially the youth to the opportunities. We do have, talking about where, you know, the cap that I'm wearing is in the department, we do have programs that we have whereby we actually train the youth and so on in this, with the requisite skills that are required to be able to participate. But I think we also need to do more in making sure that, we used to have, when I was still at school, high school, I remember very well, I wanted to be a veterinary surgeon, for example, and it never happened. But how I got interested in that was because of the career guidance that we got at school. So these things need to start from there as well.
At the school level.
At the school level, so that the youth at that level and the kids understand that you can make money. You don't even have to, I'm not propagating that people don't have to go to school. But from a little garden, you can make money in your own community, selling vegetables.
That's true.
So I think, yes.
And we're going to touch on that because, I mean, one of the examples that I want us to look into is how have others, really become innovative. But we're going to touch on that. So in line with that thought, to say we're not communicating enough, people are not probably aware of the low-hanging fruits, with no pun intended, of agriculture's opportunity of starting something and earning in the first instance without going to varsity. Do you think that there's tools that are out there, or what should people be doing and how should they be thinking as maybe entrepreneurs, besides the youth, and individuals that are trying to transition out of their careers?
Well, I think one of the simplest things to do, if you are driven, when you're passionate about something, you'll be able to do and achieve something out of it. Because I'm saying this thing because, I mean, as I mentioned that, firstly, if one wants to or is interested to take part in the economy of agriculture, at least it's important to make sure that you are acquaint yourself with what is happening within the industry. Of course, these days you can Google things and so on. But also ourselves within government as well, where I'm working, there's offices all around the province, whereby people can just go and ask. I want to, for an example, grow spinach. I want to grow beetroot or whatever it is. How do I do this thing? So the opportunities are there, and then it's just but one of the biggest thing in agriculture, let me just hasten to say that water and land, access to land, are two key issues. But however,
just elaborate a little bit. So you're saying there's not enough land that is free, or water scarcity is a problem. What is the challenge there when you're saying those two things are a big challenge to many people, and maybe it's a discouraging factor for some of the people?
Yes, remember, and that's a fact, it's a historical fact that most of the land is in the hands of the few in this country. And most of agricultural land, for that matter, prime agricultural land, is in the hands of the few. However,
so fertile land where? All right, perfect.
Now, because as you probably know, the reason I'm saying this, most of our fruit production happens in the Western Cape. Most of our grains production happens in the Free State, in Mpumalanga and Northwest. And you can clearly see from there that there's certain areas, and of course, if you talk about livestock, some of the best, and I can call it organic, goat and sheep and cattle farming. You can find them in areas like the Eastern Cape. So that on its own tells you that in terms of what can be produced where in this country, a lot of work was done before, a long time ago, through the Agricultural Research Council and so on. So we know what can be best produced where in this country. And that being the case, so it's important for one to know exactly, given the agroeconomical conditions, ecological conditions in the country, what can be best suited where. And then if you know, because as I say, firstly have knowledge about what you need to do. And then you can, for example, you can't say you want to grow your table grapes for exports in the middle of Johannesburg. Where will you do that? I mean,
or Limpopo for that
or
matter.
Limpopo for that matter, Of course, Limpopo, if you talk avocados, you talk bananas, it can be done.
Macadamia and all of that,
So there's, deciduous fruits are mostly produced in the Western Cape, and
is it because of the water availability or the soil or land that's available?
Well, we're talking about land and water in the sense that it doesn't matter what you need to do. If you are producing in open land, you need land.
Yeah.
And therefore you also need water. Okay. So those two are important. However, there are also regulations in terms of access to water through the Department of Water Affairs, for example, whereby people need to comply to. You can't just utilize water. For example, in this country, most of our farmers utilize top quality drinking water for irrigation. Which is expensive. So we can't continue.
In fact, I've learned of that this week only, that there are people who hold water rights in South Africa. Like, here I am, I'm Thabo, I own water. I own water and have water rights more than the government or the local municipality. Like, that for me was mind-boggling. And to your point, some people may be using drinking water to irrigate. You look at places like Hammanskraal and all of these other places in Limpopo who have water problems. But I'm sure a stone throw away, there's a farmer who is nicely, producing maize and other things using water from the stream that is, of drinking quality. But anyway, we'll jump into that some other time.
Yeah.
You highlighted a very important point around there was a lot of work done by the Agriculture Research Institution and probably the many other previous governments and owners to know where certain things are done. I just want us to jump into how some of the people have actually taken advantage of some of the things that have been put in place and have looked at the opportunities and say, okay, fine, I want to do agriculture products. I want to be an agro processor. I want to be a micro farmer that also exports some of my produce. Is there some of the case studies that you can think of that have gone from a micro perspective to becoming, international in how they, from a very small space, grew and become, exporters of products, even if it's not fresh produce, but it's products in the agriculture space?
Yes, no, certainly. There are some of those. I can immediately think of an agro processor, for example, who's producing sauces and some sauces within Gauteng now that was supported, and I'm sure he's presently now also exporting to countries like Swaziland, Lesotho, and so on.
Nice.
Because of the support. And I must also actually say, as an entrepreneur himself, he was actually involved in his business from the beginning, because he's processing vegetables into some, sauces and so on. And he's actually in some of our retail stores in this country.
Nice.
And of course, as I say, I think he's also exporting as we speak. We've got people that are in the essential oils industry who are also processing medicinal plants into essential oils, and of course those are also export products and so on. And
what sort of help do they get in order for them to get to that level?
I'll mention, before I get there, I'll also mention one project that I'm actually very passionate about. Farmers who are actually, black farmers who started from nowhere, who were supported in the Eastern Cape, for example, who are presently exporting citrus to Europe.
Nice.
But however, having started from humble beginnings, the most important thing that we had to assist them with in my capacity way back then was to make sure that they comply to the international food safety standards and protocols, in the sense that even their pack houses had to be compliant to what is called, it was what was called Europe GAP then, but it's called Global GAP now. Which is basically GAP meaning good agricultural practice. We had to make sure that you spray with a particular chemical, you practice good agricultural practices on your fields to make sure that you don't employ children,
Yes,
and
yes.
even your laborers are actually taken care of in terms of the facilities that they need. If they're spraying, they've got to wear the proper protective gear and so on. So all I'm trying to say, I'm just mentioning those. In where I worked, for example, in Limpopo, in Mpumalanga as well, we established the cotton farmers. As you know, cotton farmers utilize in clothing. It's an export product as well. So the opportunities are there. And
they're massive,
massive opportunities, but it's upon an entrepreneur, because if you're an entrepreneur, then you're driven. You know what you want.
No one must push you to do what you're supposed to do. I always tell the entrepreneurs, is like, if you don't know what you're doing and you think you're an entrepreneur and you start taking shortcuts, go back and then become employed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's think about, for example, the maize I was talking about. Just between here and Zambia, we've got the same sort of climate in terms of the growing maize. Right there, there's export opportunities within the maize industry itself. Your seeds, your chemicals, your fertilizers, even your equipment that is actually needed. So opportunities are there, and it's a matter of really going for these, especially, as I say again, within our youth. And then we've got policies in this country, for example, that are supportive to everybody to make sure that they take part in the economy, especially the agricultural economy.
Fantastic. So this is Thabo Makama. I'm with Mncendisi Madolo, who is the Chief Director in the Department of Agriculture in Gauteng. He's visiting us in his personal capacity, telling us and sharing wisdom after more than 30 years of working in the agriculture space, and also having come across a lot of entrepreneurs that are working in the space. And we're sharing on ideas and also findings in the space in terms of what are the opportunities that exist. We've looked at the different challenges that are there, but also opportunities. And I want to really become relevant in terms of the time that we're living in. You touched on water and water scarcity, but I think there is a very bigger, broader global challenge that we're facing, right? Which is climate change. And because of that, I was talking to someone yesterday who is selling to SPAR, selling produce to SPAR, and some of the what they call expensive crops, such as your what do you call these tomatoes? Cherry tomatoes and cocktail tomatoes. And they highlighted the fact that due to the fact that there is climate challenges, some of these retailers and buyers, global buyers, they no longer look to traditional purchasing or traditional farming practices. They want to see people doing different things so that there can be a guarantee of the produce that they're buying from you. So what have you seen in terms of some of the things that are happening in terms of smart farming that is very important for those that want to go into agriculture to look at?
No, thanks for that. I think, yes, as we all know, there is this trend whereby a lot of people are now inclined towards consuming, organic foods, because that is related also to their health and so on. And it's a big opportunity that is also there, because, and I must say also within our government, we do have a program called Land Care, because that program also promotes the fact that as much as we are producing on the land, make sure that it is going to be productive for generations to come. So make sure that you don't take off the land the nutrients that are there, all of it, and not replace them. So that there's productivity going forward. So we do have that program, and it promotes, amongst other things, conservation agriculture. And which is linked to this organic farming, because there we are actually training people to make sure, and farmers to produce in a conservative manner, making sure that you would normally see, for an example, with the maize farmers again, after harvest, you will see a lot of cattle on their fields. And what that is called mucking. Mucking. Basically, those cattle will be,
cleaning up,
eating whatever the stubs that are actually left from maize, but they also, leave their waste on the land, which is organic,
fertilizer,
which is now fertilizing the land. And during now the preparation of the land, all that is put into the soil, and it's also contributing to the fertility of the soil. So this method, I'm just mentioning that as one example, but there's others whereby people would actually utilize, for an example, chicken waste on their fields to make sure that they also fertilize their land. And a specific one, we do have it in Airport, whereby one gentleman and others who are in aquaponics utilizing, for an example, the fish and fish waste to fertilize his vegetable that is growing for one of the retailers, big retailers in the country, who are actually into organic farming, and how they grow and make sure that this is organic is in the sense that their aquaponics is linked with their fish farming, and the water circulates, and then the fertigation is is within the water, and the plants grow on some medium which is placed on top of the water, so there's no soil involved there.
So you save the land, but you're able to produce the food.
You're able to produce the food. The fish is also being produced, and its waste is also used to fertilize the vegetables. It's organic as they come, and then they sell to one of our big retailers. Packaging, and even the fish is also sold. So, and there's other technologies, of course, as I say, whereby other people, because you need to because water is scarce, so you need to have a closed system and recirculate it. Hydroponics are utilizing the same, and there's other people who are purely growing vegetables, which is hydroponics, utilizing water that actually circulates.
So it sounds so complicated. Does one need a BSc in aquaponics and hydroponics and vertical ponics to actually be able to be a farmer there? I mean, when one sees this thing, it is just amazing. I've seen people going on a hectare, fully closed out with greenhouses and purely producing on without using soil, using wood chips as some of the things. Do I need to really get a BSc in this, or is this information available where individuals can really go into this type of business?
Okay, it's yes and no. Because as I said in the beginning, one, you need that passion. So if you've got passion and you're not educated in the agricultural sector, you therefore need to go, even if you've got passion, at least go and get trained. At least, let's say you go onto a farm that is practicing organic farming. If you want to be in organic farming or aquaponics or hydroponics, and at least learn, for a year or so, and then you get yourself data. But on the other hand, as I said, the sector is big.
Yeah,
you've got people that specialize in the technology of agriculture.
Yeah,
so-called agricultural engineers. So these are the guys that are behind our agricultural infrastructure. And of course others who are more on the technology side of things could be IT related and so on, but there's agricultural engineers who are behind the hydroponic structures you're talking about and so on, the hydroponics and so on, aquaponics, the dams that are constructed to conserve water and so on, the irrigation material. So you need agricultural engineers. So as I'm saying, the answer is yes and no. For horticulture, you need horticulturalists, people who specialize in fruit production. But even there, you've got a pear, you've got an apple, you've got a banana. Even there They are specialists of apple production only.
Yeah. So there's an apple engineer or an apple specialist that knows about the plant species, the growth, the seed, and everything else.
Yeah, actually, if you go to the Western Cape again, and even in Limpopo and some of this, because we've got what is called the Deciduous Fruit Producers Association.
Mm-hmm.
These people are there, they're employed, and on the fields, they're scientists. They're also in the laboratories whereby they look at, because each and every harvest, they analyze things and see.
Yeah.
At the end of it all, does this apple comply to the export requirements, for example, in terms of the MRLs, the maximum chemical residue limit in that pear, in that apple, etc.
Sure.
So these things are analyzed. So there are scientists besides the engineers, the scientists themselves that are actually horticulturalists, trained to make sure that the produce complies to everything. So yes, you need education on this thing.
Yeah.
It's very, very important as a basis. That is why you see, most of white farmers, they take their kids with in their farming, even if one is not educated. Take the kid to a university or technical college to go and learn specifically
about the crop,
about what they are farming with, and then that kid comes back, and then those skills are imparted on the.
It's interesting. Farming. It's interesting. I mean, you're touching on a very good, important question that many people may not see as important to career guide the individuals or the youth or young people. We often talk about things that young people know. It's become a doctor, become a teacher, become this, become that. But no one actually goes into depth of saying what is the plethora or even the extent, length and breadth of agriculture qualification. Because for one to become an apple specialist, it's a career, and there's jobs that are aligned to that, right? For one to become a flower specialist, it's a career, it's a job. I mean, sometimes I go to the flower market here in Joburg, in Isando, and I find that when I get there, I see people bringing multiple species of flower, but the place gets so busy, right? For someone who doesn't buy flowers, that world does not exist. For someone who doesn't go to the Joburg fruit and vegetable market, that world doesn't exist. In fact, one of the companies that I'm a partner into, who are developing a technology in AI analysis of vegetable quality, they were telling me that you find a queue of spinach producers, and the buyers in the market choose which spinach they will buy according to specific quality by looking at it, by looking at the leaves, by looking at the size of leaf, the greenness of the leaf. So the space is big. So even if we are not entrepreneurs in the space, what can individuals do to familiarize themselves with some of the ecosystem of agriculture? And I think there's also a question around what help is there for women who want to be in that particular space.
Yes, I think one of the things which we are also doing in the province is organize market days in various areas in the province. And this is also one to ensure that our farmers that are producing vegetables, etc., have got a place where they can go over a weekend, make money, and sell their produce.
There was one in Tembisa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was one in Vereeniging, and the one which was supposed to happen in Tembisa was postponed because of the shutdown.
Yeah.
So there are those market days which are organized so that people can go there, and if some others, because also our officials attend these. If people who are interested in whatever commodity or crop, they can explain to them in terms of how they go about producing whatever they want to produce. So we organize those. But also over and above that, people must also attend conferences that are actually organized on this or even farmers market days. You know, there's what is called annually.
Yeah.
I think it's during or just after the harvesting of maize in the Free State. It's called NAMPO.
Yeah.
National Maize Producers Organization. There, this is where you see the who's who in the maize industry in this country.
Sure.
Farmers actually, come there in their choppers, not driving, they come in their choppers.
Not in the Range Rover, in the Range Chopper.
In the Range Chopper.
That's when you see money, right? There's money and there is money. Yeah, proper things.
There's also technologies which are exposed to people on how they can improve on their production of maize, the machineries, new machinery. Because remember, when you harvest maize as well, these days, commercial maize farmers. I'm talking a lot about maize. It seems
it's the pup effect.
Because we actually, that is where we actually get our pap from.
We consume staple diet for many countries, especially for Africans.
As I say, the machinery used there is big machinery, and so people must get exposed. That's what I'm trying to say. If you want to be educated in this thing and know how to produce a particular crop and a vegetable and so on, and even livestock, because even the breeding of livestock, talking about beef, and I love beef farming as well. Your Bonsmaras, your other breeds, beef breeds, are actually, bred in a particular manner. And you know that if you go and buy at an auction, for example, a bull of Bonsmara that is worth 250,000 rands, there's a reason why. Because it's bred properly for beef production.
The right genetics,
etc. And you are guaranteed, and it's registered. You've got a certificate, it's registered. You can be able to produce your own beef, that you can sell everywhere. And there's various other breeds, your Herefords, and so on. So your Brahman, and so it depends what kind of breed you want to also farm with, but knowledge
is
acquisition
power.
Is very important.
So I see that a lot of people often go into spaces without really doing a lot of research, and I think for anyone who wants to go into any type of business, it's always important to really get yourself acquainted to the space. But and oftentimes we look at these conferences and say, it's just conferences and cheap coffee and stuff. But there's big networking opportunities. I'm a serial networker. So a week ago, I was in Cape Town for the launch of the Warm Hub space in Cape Town, and they also have Warm Hub here in Joburg. But what I realized was the fact that in a basic space where people are talking about a common theme, common conversation, it's easier to network with the person. Unlike going into a space you don't know and you don't know the stranger. So there's an icebreaker that exists by going into a conference that is specific around a specific topic. And when you get there, the person knows that the likelihood, 50 to 60% chance that you're going to be talking about cars at an agriculture space is non-existent, right? But you will be talking about agriculture, at least even in opening a conversation. And so I like that point when you're saying people must start attending these conferences, these meetings, these market days, and all of that. And I think it's so important that if you're an entrepreneur, you become very wise around how you spread your wings and get into that. This is Thabo Makama, and if you're joining us for the first time listening to the recording, this is T-Junction, and it's a very informative space that we've created for entrepreneurs, for individuals who want to go into different spaces. We bring about experts that come and tell us what is it that we can do, how we can grow, and how we can really make a difference in our specific spaces. Today, I'm talking to Mncendisi Madolo, who is the Chief Director in Gauteng. He's visiting me today. That's why we're having a surprise visit and having a conversation around agriculture on a Friday, right? And we're having water. For anyone who's inspecting, we are having water. We won't say what the water is mixed with, but it is it's an aqua conversation. Yeah. So, Mr. Madolo, so part of the things that we are seeing, you touched on, is a very innovative way of coming and participating into agriculture spaces without a very capital intensive requirement. What are some of the examples that you've seen, with people going into different spaces? You spoke about someone, I think, farming for a retailer, but using small spaces. And maybe what are other products that people are going into that are giving them an income? Because I think sometimes people look at business as a vehicle to become a multimillionaire, but there's other individuals who do what I call subsistence entrepreneurship, which is you are at a space where you need to survive and you want to grow as an entrepreneur. You are creative enough to want to start a business, and agriculture is one of those particular spaces where you can have an opportunity to earn a living, right? So what are some of the innovative things that are happening in your space that you've seen that individuals need to explore?
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Thabo. And of course, there's both less capital intensive and capital intensive.
Yeah.
And I can just mention one. We've got a lady, for an example, that we're supporting. It's farming on top of your Morningside shopping center, producing vegetables there.
Mm.
And it's not capital intensive at all. It's got trays there that he's utilizing, and the water is circulating. So he's got his small hydroponic structure there, plus minus 40 squares that she's utilizing together with the boyfriend, and they're making money.
Nice.
And all the shops there in the Morningside shopping, they're supplying vegetables, they're making a decent income, 30 to 40,000 rands a month. And you can imagine if they can replicate these to other malls, for an example, and even utilizing the whole Morningside mall. So the technologies are there.
Yeah.
People can also utilize, for an example. Because in Gauteng we don't have much land.
Mm.
There are school buildings that
Yeah.
are not utilized, left there,
Mm.
and they're just vandalized and so on. And other municipal buildings which are there that can be utilized, wherein you can practice your vertical farming, in the sense that the structures that you put up, like as I say, this lady at the Morningside, he's got some vertical structures, wherein she plants her vegetables, within these. There are holes which are in these vertical structures, wherein the seedlings are plugged in there, and plus minus 3 to 4 weeks, then one harvest.
Sure. That fast?
Yes, of course. It's vegetables.
3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can harvest because 3 to 4 months. Sorry, I said weeks. It's months. Not weeks.
Okay.
It's months.
Cool.
3 to 4 months. Because that's what you need for vegetables. So.
But still, 3 months is very quick.
It is actually
compared to other places where the produce takes 7 years.
We've got now some, and we can take you there, school food gardens that we're supporting in the Gauteng Province, whereby some of our farmers who planted in November are now harvesting.
Wow.
Carrots and so on, and you gave them seedlings and then they're producing. So there's another model, for an example, where we can produce about 56 vegetables, but leafy ones.
Wow.
Like your spinach, even your
lettuce.
green and lettuce and so on. The leafy one. So it's a triangular structure. You can plant 56 there with the holes and so on, and we utilize this and we distribute them in the early childhood development center, so that even kids
can see
in there can actually see that this is where vegetables are actually produced from.
Yeah, not from ShopRite,
not from
Pick n Pay,
or whatever. So this is where they come from, and you can make money out of
it,
all vegetables in a small space. And it's not complicated technology, but the beauty about this, talking about entrepreneurship, is that one, at the production level of this thing, fine, you can buy the structures yourself.
Yeah.
However, there's also the production and manufacturing of the structures. For an example, the guy I'm talking about, Bruce, he's actually it's got an IP in the structure that, and you can, utilize it even in if you've got an apartment incentive, for example, you can have that
on the balcony.
On the balcony, and
nice.
Utilize it. It's not expensive. It's plus minus between 3,000 to 5,000 rands.
Nice.
And you can produce. Talking about organic that we talked about.
Yes, yes.
You can actually, in that one, utilize. There's manure, only manure that is put in there, and you can produce utilizing that structure for about 3 years.
Wow.
So technologies are there, from capital intensive to less capital intensive. So they are there, and we've got examples that can be utilized. And people, one, you can produce for yourself as a subsistence farmer, and you can produce and sell a little bit.
Wow. And what are some alternative products that people are going into, which, traditionally we spoke about bons maras and all of those, but I'm sure there's other forms of protein and forms of products that people are going into that you're seeing as a trend now. I've seen a lot of micro farmers of chickens, but with the load shedding, a lot of farmers have lost a lot of chickens. I mean, it's a scourge out there, and unfortunately, when you see all of these things happening, it is disheartening. But others have come maybe through to your office, and maybe in you've seen some of the things that they are producing. When we were speaking earlier, you mentioned someone producing patties with different meat.
Yeah, these alternatives are there. There's farmers that are actually into rabbit farming. And one of the entrepreneurs was actually based in KZN, but he also visits here. And some of these entrepreneurs are in Soweto. I think they're around Vilakazi as well. And they produce and supply rabbit meat, process it in various forms, as indicated. There's beef patties, sausages, etc. from rabbit. So rabbit meat is there, and also, of course,
and it's a healthy option, eh?
It is a healthy,
very
option.
lean,
very lean, in terms of its fat content and so on.
Yeah,
and I mean, my father is a hunter as well, so it's very nice.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Yeah,
and of course, talking about the healthiness of these different types of protein sources. Some of the farmers actually are into game farming.
Yeah.
So game farming itself is another opportunity that is there.
Which is a healthy option as well.
It's a healthy option, and there are some farms around also Gauteng and so on that are into game farming. Where people can actually, I think during the season, another friend of mine actually said to me yesterday, is going to invite me to go for a hunting session in Namibia. So those opportunities are there also. I talked about fish farming, land-based fish farming, which is what aquaculture is.
Wow.
So that's another one.
So this is a controlled environment where fish is produced and it's sold much cheaper than getting it from as an import and stuff like that. Fantastic. So this is Thabo Makama and T-Junction. We are always trying to bring individuals and conversations that are going to be beneficial for you. Today we're talking agriculture, and we're talking about what can be done in the space of agriculture, starting a business and working in a space, and really growing yourself and growing your knowledge in how can you become an entrepreneur in this particular space. We touched on a whole lot of things that Mr. Madolo brought out, which were, for me, fascinating to get to understand. That I think it's been a great privilege to really suck on the knowledge that over the 30 years that you have and the current exposure that you have. And I think many people will really enjoy this conversation that we're having. And I think we've hit the hour mark, as we usually do. The conversations that are nice, they take long. We always go above the hour. But I'm very grateful to the fact that there's a lot happening in the space, and many people perhaps don't know about it, and now they'll probably become aware and start, analyzing the information going into that space. My last question to you is, are we doing enough as South Africans and maybe entrepreneurs in general to become familiar with the agriculture value chain opportunities? And if not, what can we do?
Okay, yeah, I think we need to do more to really expose our citizenry in the country in terms of opportunities. I think my MSc also talks about the fact that in the meetings that we do with communities, that Forbes says the next billionaires are coming from agriculture.
Exactly.
And if we embrace that, we also need to make sure that, not if, but we do embrace it. And if other entrepreneurs out there want to embrace this, have to make sure that they attend again the information sessions, the market days that we do, and also at least read a bit about what opportunities are there in the sector. And most importantly, because we also do, one of the things that's important is that, especially for the youth must get educated in agriculture.
Sure.
Skills are very, very important. We offer bursaries in the department, whereby we send from junior degrees to postgraduate degrees, so that youth is actually empowered and they take part in the economy of agriculture. It is very, very important. So I think we still need to do more. And I think having been invited here in this podcast, for an example, we need to do more of the non-traditional media platforms and interactions. Because, for example, when we advertise our support to our citizenry in the province, we utilize the normal papers, the radio stations, normal ones, and so on. But we also need to make sure that, and I know our department is very progressive. We do these things through Twitter as well, and Facebook and so on. So, but we need to amplify. That's the point I'm making, and make sure that. I mean, also during market days, maybe we must invite you to our market day so that we can actually interview people.
That will be fantastic
during the market days, and make sure that we. Even the entrepreneurs that are there can actually come and talk about their experiences and where they started and how we supported them.
Yeah, I think that collaboration and partnership could really go a long way, and perhaps it will also maybe get us an opportunity to speak to the MEC and touch base in terms of what are the bigger strategic objectives of the department, and I think. As you are wearing your personal hat today, I'm very grateful that you were able to share with us some of the nuggets and knowledge and things that we could do. And to those that are attending live, thank you very much. I see that we've had individuals that have heeded the call at the last minute. I really appreciate you and appreciate how you've been supporting, the T-Junction space. I mean, for anyone who wants to go into agriculture, just take there's two things I always tell people. Africa's got the youngest population, and two, we've got most consumption in terms of population of those particular young people. So if you've got people that are eating and that have power, look around the opportunities of feeding them. That's where your secret weapon is going to come from. And in that way, you then can start identifying land, you can start identifying opportunities, the verticals that come into agriculture, the technology, and as Mr. Madolo brought out, that in the value chain, upstream, downstream, you can find something that you're going to do. And with whatever we're doing, let's also educate our children to try and identify opportunities. Let them get to know and understand where the food that they eat come from, and perhaps with exposure, you can eventually plant a seed that an individual will really like the industry. They will want to participate in maybe it might be their next career. So for me, I think it's very valid that we can always look around and impart knowledge, but also empower ourselves to do more in the agriculture space. I'm one person who is leaning more towards agriculture as I grow older, because I'm starting to get to understand, the value of agriculture and what it can do and how it can empower many people. This is Thabo Makama, and I am your host for T-Junction. I'm not going alone. I have my guest, special guest today, Mr. Mncendisi Madolo. Thank you very much. Enkosi kakhulu, Mhlekazi. And with my producer, Lufefe, who's always doing a great job in making sure that everything else goes smooth. And signing out, Thabo Makama, T-Junction. Remember, we're always going to do this. Look out for the announcements as when we do the live sessions. We are going to still have the Monday live sessions and recorded sessions, as we are changing the format of T-Junction, but we're not changing the content and information that we're bringing to you. Signing out, over and out, Thabo Makama. Thank you. Cheers.